In the late 1990s, when the literacy hour was at its height, we were expected to have a great big book, and we were supposed to show the book to the children and read along with them. So one day when I was doing some training, I was going to read a passage by a man called Chomsky. And I thought, oh, for a joke, instead of me reading it to the group, let's read it all together as if it's a big book. Well, I was surprised, and so were the participants, by the result. Now I'm going to read, so I'm going to read it now, but actually I'm going to invite you, join in with me, because I think you'll learn something, because something very strange happened. So here it is, 3 short pages of Chomsky. Are you ready? Go. A grammar contains a syntactic component, a semantic component, and a phonological component. The latter two are purely interpretative. They play no part in the recursive generation of sentence structures. The syntactic component consists of a base and a transformational component. The base, in turn, consists of a categorical component and a lexicon. The base generates deep structures. A deep structure enters the semantic component and receives a semantic interpretation. It is mapped by the transformational rules into a surface structure, which is then given a phonetic interpretation by the rules of the phonological component. So what did you think about reading it aloud? Did it help you understand? No, me neither, and none of my audiences found it helpful. A surprise, because that's what we were being told to do in the literacy hour. Of course, it's not a real test, it's not a fair test, because it was too difficult for us, wasn't it? Hopefully, the books we use with children won't be so difficult, so it might be useful for most children. But we do need to remember that for some children, even if they can say the words fluently, like we could when we were reading it aloud, that doesn't mean they can understand it. Well, that was my first question. Now, the next question is a bit strange. I want to ask you about how you felt. How did you feel when you were reading it aloud with me? I have been surprised by the strong feelings that people felt after that exercise. Lots of people said they felt anxious because everybody else was saying it and could they get it right. Some people felt angry because they were being pressurised into doing something, irritated, that's the same, isn't it? Oh, some people felt giggly. Oh, naughty boys are bad, but giggly girls, oh dear. Some people felt sad. You know, they were sad because they felt everybody else is doing it and I can't, I'm not very good. Rebellious, oh there's your naughty boy. Embarrassed, because it was too difficult. Manipulated, well of course they were being manipulated. Worried. And worst of all, some people said they felt stupid. Now, once you get a student saying they feel stupid, you've got a student who's not learning properly. Anything that makes kids feel stupid is really bad for their progress. Now, the other important thing there is the strength of those emotions. Because these were adults, they knew it was a trick, they knew that I didn't expect them to understand, and yet they still felt these strong feelings. Well, how much worse is it for the kids in our classrooms when they don't understand what we're saying? And of course, for many children learning EAL, that is what's happening day after day after day. And we need to be very aware that sometimes the emotions that children are feeling are really going to get in between them and progress and their learning. Now, the next question to think about is, why was that Chomsky so difficult? And I kept getting this answer, people saying, it's boring. And at first I just laughed and ignored it. But actually, the more I thought about it, the more important that seemed to me. Something's boring if we can't engage with it at all. And if the children are unable to engage with our lessons at all, well, of course they're going to be bored, turned off, not learn, and be naughty. So boring, really important that we don't do stuff that's boring. Now the second thing it strikes me is that we haven't got any background knowledge, that most of us don't know the linguistics that Chomsky's talking about. And I haven't read anything else that he's written, and as you can see, it's quite difficult writing. So haven't got that background knowledge. So we need to think about whether the children have got the background knowledge before we teach them anything. But the thing that really hit me between the eyes was the difficult words. There are so many difficult words. Syntactic, recursive, interpretive, transformational. Oh, and even words that are easy, like map. He's using and base. He's using in a particular way, and we don't understand that jargon use of it. So vocabulary, I still think that learning a language is the most difficult part of learning a language is actually absorbing the amount of vocabulary you need before you can use the language. And it was just one block of text, no pictures at all, nothing to support our understanding, not even bullet points. That would have helped a little bit. And of course there are all sorts of structural problems. The one I want to point out is the word latter. Because the latter two are, well, of course, if you're an adult reader, you always stop at the word latter and just glance back and say, well, what's that referring to? Now, of course, I made you read it with me, didn't I? If I'd have let you stop and read back to find it, you'd have understood the whole passage, wouldn't you? Very easily. Now, an apology. I'm very sorry. I'm going to show you another piece of really difficult text. Not by Chomsky, but still equally difficult, and I do apologise. I'm not going to make you read it this time. Just have a look at this very difficult text. Biff got the paddling pool. Kipper filled it with water. Okay, that didn't look very difficult to you, did it? Didn't look like Chomsky at all. But to the Year 2 children newly arrived from Bangladesh, it looked just like the Chomsky that you saw. And you have to ask, what was I doing? In January, showing these children a story about paddling pools. And, you know, background knowledge? Those children, Bangladeshi children, they'd never seen a paddling, they'd never seen a lawn before. They were in an inner city school. Actually, when you went around, there was hardly a blade of grass anywhere, let alone a whole lawn. No wonder they couldn't come to terms with it. And of course that's the problem though, that we don't recognise things that are difficult. We don't see things that are Chomsky. We think they're easy. And what was I doing? Well, I was a young teacher and I'd only been teaching 25 years then. And I was doing some sort of project or other, and the mainstream teacher said, this is the level they're on. And I picked up these books. Oh, lovely. Oh, very nice. Pictures the children will understand exactly. No, they wouldn't. So again, we need to be thinking carefully about the children's reactions, their emotional reactions and their intellectual reactions, their linguistic reactions. Can they understand this? Is it boring or is it exciting? How do we involve them? How do we support their language learning? So what can we do to make sure our children are learning? Well, the most important thing, of course, is to get the level right for every child, in every class, in every lesson, and only a crazy fool would suggest that, wouldn't it? It's quite impossible. You can't even get the level right if you've got a class of 1 child, let alone if you've got a class of 30. So forget that. Let's see what we could really do. Now, one thing we might be able to occasionally, if we've got extra support in the class, is pre-teach some of the stuff that's coming up. Great if you've got someone who speaks the same language as the child, but even if not, someone else who can just go through the stuff you're going to come up next week. Brilliant. And of course we need to support their understanding. We didn't have any visuals for the Chomsky, so we need to produce visuals. And we need to make sure they can understand the visuals, not like paddling pools. First language, the children's first language also supports their understanding. Crucial to think about supporting their understanding. We talked in earlier videos about interaction. If we organise interacting with other children, the kids can find their own ways around to learn what it's all about. So that's really important. And finally, listen out for misunderstandings. So all the time we need to be alert to the fact that children might have misunderstood something.